Can I please have order?
It is 7 o'clock, man.
It is. By my watch, it is. Thank you very much. I'd like to start the meeting off, as usual, with a pledge of allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as customary, I'd ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and televised by a local cable channel company. I need a motion to approve bill and payroll warrants.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye. I need a motion to accept correspondence in the read file.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. All right, public forum. Does anybody here wish to speak in public forum? This is something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, thank you. I need a motion to approve meeting minutes for open session September 10th, 2019.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, our next section is going to be the promotional ceremony, which we're doing down here. And what we're going to do is we'll do that, all the promotional ceremony down here, and then once that has been completed, we will adjourn and go up to our meeting room, and people here are welcome to shake hands, do whatever you want to do in the town hall. It's fine with me. So I'd like to say that on August 6th, the board voted to appoint. Huh? Yeah. Right. On August 6th, the board voted to appoint Tim Hanlon, Chief of Police, and Joe Bombardier, Deputy Police Chief, subject to negotiating compensation. That has been completed. Those negotiations have been concluded, and what I want to do right now is I want to call for a motion to approve, thank you, Tim Hanlon as our Chief of Police. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That being done, I want a motion. Well, I'll wait for Joe Bombardier. I think now we'll have a swearing in. Oh, yes, and we need to motion to approve the contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll have the ceremony?
Now you can have.
Now, okay. Tim?
Yeah, just so the mic can hear us. It's with great honor that I'm here tonight. I swear you in as the Deputy Chief. Gosh, I don't know how long ago that was. Probably 12 years ago, right?
No, it's 2012. So
27 years ago. And I'm proud to be here to swear you in as the Chief of Police of my town and your town as well.
Thank you.
So you're going to raise your right hand and you're going to face me, please, sir. And you're going to repeat after me. I, Timothy P. Hanlon,
I, Timothy P. Hanlon,
promise to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
promise to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the Commonwealth
the laws of the Commonwealth
of Massachusetts,
of Massachusetts,
and the bylaws of the town of Whitman.
and the bylaws of the town of Whitman.
I promise to bring to my profession
I promise to bring to my profession
a standard of quality
a standard of quality
and integrity,
and integrity,
so that the conduct of my affairs of my office
so that the conduct of my affairs of my office
shall be above reproach
shall be above reproach
and merit public confidence
and merit public confidence
in the position of police chief.
in the position of police chief.
I promise to uphold such laws and bylaws
I promise to uphold such laws and bylaws
to which the office of police chief
to which the office of Police Chief
may be subject.
may be subject.
I, Timothy P. Hanlon,
I, Timothy P. Hanlon,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will perform the duties incumbent on me
that I will perform the duties incumbent upon me
as Police Chief for the town of Whitman
as Police Chief for the town of Whitman
in good faith
in good faith
and to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir. And the chief's wife is going to pin on his badge.
On that same night, on August 6th, the board voted to appoint Joe Bombardier as our new deputy chief. What I need is a motion to approve Joe Bombardier being our deputy chief
Contract.
and to approve his contract. Do I hear a motion?
Second. Motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Joe, you're up.
Get on up here, Joe. Again, it is with great pride that I'm here before you. Joe and I went to school together, for those of you who don't know. He was a year older than me. Oh, yeah, younger than me. But always wiser. Joe was always wiser than me. Wise, I won't say it. Anyways, we shall go forward. And I'm very, very proud to stand here, as you are very proud to stand there. And please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph E. Bombardier,
I, Joseph E. Bombardier,
promise to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
promise to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and the bylaws of the town of Whitman.
and the bylaws of the town of Whitman.
I promise to bring to my profession a standard of quality
I promise to bring to my profession a standard of quality
and integrity,
and integrity,
so that the conduct of my affairs
so that the conduct of my affairs
of my office
shall be above reproach
and merit public confidence
and merit public confidence
in the position of Deputy Police Chief.
in the position of Deputy Police Chief.
I promise to uphold such laws and bylaws
I promise to uphold such laws and bylaws
to which the office of Deputy Police Chief
to which the office of Deputy Police Chief
may be subject.
may be subject.
I, Joseph E. Bombardier,
I, Joseph E. Bombardier,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will perform the duties incumbent upon me
that I will perform the duties incumbent upon me
as Deputy Police Chief
as Deputy Police Chief
for the town of Whitman
for the town of Whitman
in good faith
in good faith
and to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank
Come on up, Kim. Oh, and Joe's dad, what's his name? Paul. And Paul Bombardier, please, come on up.
Come on over here.
Hang on one second.
Thank you.
And then again, on that same night, on August 6th, we voted to appoint Patrick Burtt-Henderson as our new police sergeant, promoted to police sergeant. Do I hear a motion to appoint him as our new sergeant?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Where's Patrick? Is he here?
He is. He's here. You're much younger than me, so I didn't go to school with him. You probably went to school with my children. But I am proud to be here to swear you in this evening, okay? So you're going to raise your right hand and you repeat after me. I, Patrick D. Burtt-Henderson,
I, Patrick D. Burtt-Henderson,
promise to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
promise to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and the bylaws of the town of Whitman.
and the bylaws of the town of Whitman.
I promise to bring to my profession and standard
I promise to bring to my profession a standard
of quality and integrity,
of quality and integrity,
so that the conduct of my affairs
so that the conduct of my affairs
of my office
of my office
shall be above reproach
shall be above reproach
and merit public confidence
and merit public confidence
in the position of police sergeant.
in the position of police sergeant.
I promise to uphold such laws and bylaws
I promise to uphold such laws and bylaws
to which the office of police sergeant may be subject.
to which the office of police sergeant may be subject.
I, Patrick D. Burtt-Henderson,
I, Patrick D. Burtt-Henderson,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will perform the duties incumbent upon me
that I will perform the duties incumbent upon me
as police sergeant for the town of Whitman
as police sergeant for the town of Whitman
in good faith
in good faith
and to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Chrissy, you want to come on up? This is his wife. What's his name? And his dad, David.
Well, that ends our promotional ceremony. I need a motion to recess and reconvene in our selectmen's meeting room. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Enjoy yourself. We'll be upstairs. Continue what I'm doing. I now need a motion to go into open session again.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I want to, as they say, I want to congratulate our new chief and deputy chief and our new sergeant. I expect that they will be doing an excellent job, and we ought to see some changes. That being said, we need to schedule a hearing on a meeting, public hearing, for the application of Boston Auto Mall LLC. I can't pronounce that name.
Skip it for a license.
Thank you. For a Class II auto dealer's license on the premise located at 1113 Bedford Street, subject to the 20-day appeal period associated with the approval of the zoning boards of appeal. The receipt of financial statement, proof of workers' compensation insurance, proof of surety bond, and a final inspection approval by the building commissioner and the zoning enforcement officer. Okay, that being said, I noticed that there's a number of changes that the appeal board came up with,
Yes.
and they need to be adhered to, and I assume that Bob will make sure that's done.
Yeah, that was the discussion at the Board of Appeals, is
Right.
that Bob would be watching over carefully as the project came together.
That being said, does anybody have any questions?
I just have one. Are you leasing this property? Are you buying the property?
We are purchasing the property.
Purchasing.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Just, Dan, one other thing. Any vote you take tonight to approve the license, it will be held until all of the conditions are met, and Bob has notified Lori that it's okay to release.
Okay.
So we will be holding the license.
Okay, that'll be in the motion, so do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? You understand? You know, you gotta make sure everything's
Yes,
all set.
yes,
before you
positively.
license. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I don't get paid by the word tonight.
Huh?
I'm glad I don't get paid by the word tonight.
I know it.
You know?
You owe me $10.
Sounds
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Hey, that being said.
More than $10.
Yeah, all right, $12. Town administrators report.
I've been working on a number of issues that are further down in the agenda, so I would defer to the agenda right now.
Budget review committee, Randy.
We are meeting tentatively next Monday night. I have no major updates since the last one I gave. That is depending on our consultant's health. I'm still waiting on an update on that. I should have it tomorrow. If the meeting will be on, I will have an agenda posted.
Excellent. Next on the agenda is act on a proposed town-wide vacation policy. Frank, you want to explain?
As you know, we have been working on this town policy for a long time. And one of the issues that we are addressing in this updated policy is the carryover of vacation. Over the last few years, we have had financially significant payouts for accrued and unused vacation. The intent of this policy is not so much to affect people's right to vacation, but to encourage them to use it. The policy will require that employees may carry over no more than 9 vacation days. This policy is also affected by collective bargaining agreements that are in place and bargaining agreements that come into place. The effect of this policy will mean that we're going to have to meet with a couple of people who have far in excess of the 9 days that will be permitted under this new policy and coordinate a plan for those persons to use that time rather than lose it. Once this is in place, any days over 9 that are not used within the fiscal year will be forfeit. So it's important that this become very clear to everybody. I will also be introducing in this budget cycle a vacation accrual line to recognize those liabilities that we have that accrue even under the new policy requirement, so that we're not in a position that we've been in the past few years where we have had to pay out vacation that exceeds the amount of money in the appropriation for the current and future occupant, which again is the case right now. So hopefully the board will review this and take action on it, and we'll begin.
So we don't need to
trim
vote
that
on it tonight,
process.
we just need to go over it, and we'll take it at a future meeting?
No, and
Want to vote it tonight?
yeah, this has been brought to this committee a number of times.
Okay. I've always felt, working 43 years with the same company that I work for, I always thought that vacation time, very important, that needed to be used. You need to be able to divorce your mind from your job, rest your mind, get a vacation, enjoy your family, whatever it takes. And to come up with not taking a vacation, I think it's not the right thing to do for a person's mental state, as far as I'm concerned. You need to take the time. And I don't know how they accumulate and how they keep adding on year to year all this vacation time, but they need to understand that vacation time is there for a purpose, and it's there to relax your mind, so when you come back, you can do a better job. Do I hear a motion to accept this?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Does anybody want to talk about it?
I'd just like to bring up that the 9 days that we settled on is not arbitrary. It was the vacation rollover in the collective bargaining
The
agreement.
maximum
The
rollover
maximum
in a
rollover
collective
in a
bargaining.
yeah, correct.
And,
Yeah, no, that's,
all right. And I'd just also like to address that this is something that's been discussed due to an issue that's come up in our audits, that we have had to figure out a way to deal with basically what's an outstanding liability year to year. So this is partly also in a way to address that function that we've been told we should address.
Yes. You have anything on it?
I just think it's time to be proactive in these things, and we've all really beat this to death in, behind closed doors, and we've decided that this is the way to go, and I think it'll benefit everybody. So I'm definitely in favor of it.
Brian, thank you for pointing that out. The negotiations started in executive session because there were compensation issues that had to be negotiated, and this was the result of
All
that.
right. Okay, that being said, have we had a motion and a second,
Yeah.
all right?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Take action to rescind the appointment of Scott D. Benton of the position of constable, keeper of lockup, liquor license inspection agent, 911 coordinator, deputy director, and security WEMA.
So moved.
For a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Take action to appoint Timothy P. Hanlon to the position of keeper of lockup, used to be keeper of the jail at one time, keeper of lockup, liquor license inspection agent, 911 coordinator, deputy director, security of WEMA.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have to discuss ethic disclosure of Chief Hanlon. Frank?
Yeah, let me just explain that. Chief Hanlon is very active in a youth group in Hanover, and on occasion has provided an opportunity to use equipment we have as part of that training process. It is not necessarily a conflict to do that because it's in the public interest and it's a public service, but it could appear to be a conflict to someone who says, hey, wait a minute, why are we doing that? So that disclosure is intended to put that in the air and just basically say that as a police officer in the town of Whitman, he does periodically perform services in Hanover, and we want to clear the air in terms of any question someone may have about it being a conflict. By disclosing, it puts it to rest.
Do we need a vote on that, Frank, or just?
Yes, we should vote to accept it.
All right, motion to accept.
Motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Frank.
Dan, before we get into the
Yeah.
next thing I'm going to do with fees, the first item under new business, I think we may have passed that over.
And first,
Yeah, the very first one.
Friends of the Whitman Park,
oh, I'm
probably
sorry.
at the bottom of your screen.
And he's a member.
On the first page?
Yeah.
Under
First
new
item
business, first item, first bullet. Page 2,
Yeah,
second section, first bullet.
act on request, oh, my God, I checked it off. My God. Thank you very much. June would be really upset with me.
Yep.
Act on the request of Friends of the Park, of Whitman Park, to use the Town Hall Auditorium on Saturday, November 2nd, 2019, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. to hold their annual wine tasting and silent auction, and for a one-day liquor license, and to waive that fee for said license, and to use the auditorium all day Friday and Saturday, November 1st and 2nd, 2019, in order to set up for the event. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, just to let people know, we had our meeting, this may be the last one, that wine tasting, that we've been doing it for 20 years and everyone's getting tired. We don't know if there's enough energy or somebody else wants to continue it. It's been a great event for 20 years. town hall has been packed, so hopefully that will continue, but people are getting tired of doing it, so we'll just see what happens. So I just want to make that out there, and if anyone's interested in helping us put that together, just get a hold of June Lopez, and she would appreciate the help. That being said, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. Act on the increase of the alternate building inspector fee from $25 to $30.
This is a fee that we have not raised in a number of years, and it is a token payment when our inspector is unavailable and we need to call someone out to do an emergency inspection. It just seems reasonable.
Okay, does the fee go to the building inspector?
It goes to the inspector conducting the
Right,
inspection.
okay. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss Whitman Liquors receiving a Keno monitor, does not require a vote. So,
The
Frank,
intent of that is to make sure that the board and the public are aware that a company has asked to offer Keno services. We only have to take action if the board chooses not to allow it.
okay, does anyone choose not to allow it? That being said, we don't need to vote on it. Okay, next, discuss school committee recommendation for district agreement committee. Frank, you want to start it, or?
I think perhaps it would be best to move on to the next question first, which
Okay.
is the assessment method for assessing the two
Okay,
towns.
all right, next on the agenda is discuss assessment method for the town assessment by the town's assessments by the Whitman-Hanson School District. It's either Frank or Randy, where are we going?
Well, Randy and I have been working very diligently on this item and spending a lot of time communicating with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and Randy as well with the superintendent and other school committee
You
members.
missed a small.
And essentially, as we understand it, the method of assessing is determined one of two ways for towns that are in a district. The district can follow an existing agreement that specifies the way you assess each town for its share of the operating budget, or you can use the statutory method, which from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is the preferred method. Our agreement stipulates, and it was signed in 1991, I believe, that assessments are based on student population. And currently, in our last assessment, we had 59.88% of the students at Whitman-Hanson. The method that the state intends for regions to use is the statutory method. And by that, I mean a method whereby the state calculates the financial ability of each member town within a district and then establishes what the aid for each of those towns will be. And that's your starting point. That money is effectively credited to each town based on its aid. What remains is then apportioned by the provisions of a contract. So what's happened is over the years, we have continued to assess each town based solely on student count. It's not the intent of the statute or the regulations promulgated by DESE. The intent is to give each community sufficient assistance to provide quality education to the children. Whatever assessment figure, whatever assessment process we use will not necessarily change the budget for the school, because the budget is what's calculated to be necessary to run the system, but it will affect the share that the towns pay. So,
Randy, you want to?
Right, so basically, for anyone who's somewhat followed this for a little bit, a question came up regarding assessment. A 2007 memorandum from DESI spells out two annual methods of assessment, a statutory method and an agreement, or what they deem an alternative method. Currently, the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District signed an agreement in 1991, an agreement that predates the ed reform of 1993. In that ed reform of 1993, the state came out with a criteria, financially and economically based criteria, that developed a method deemed the statutory method. By doing so, that opened up two methods annually for a school district to adopt an assessment. There was some discussion the other night at the school committee meeting that personally I did not agree with. I've dealt with school committee Mr. Small on this. We also have a couple members of the budget committee, Chris George and Don Byers, was not in complete agreement with what we heard the other night. Although, and this is where the part gets confusing, what they said is not incorrect. That yes, there is an alternative method. Is that a legal method? Yes, it is. The argument Whitman is saying is that there is two methods annually. And what it is the state actually recommends, puts it in place that almost makes it impossible not to use the statutory method. It is actually a fallback method. When and if you ever got to a super town meeting. The statutory method is actually the fallback method if the commissioner of education has to take your budget over. There's a reason for that. It's because it is the most equitable way to produce a budget for a school district. It is a self-correcting method. Means it is adjusting constantly. It will adjust annually based on these economic factors. This afternoon, actually Thursday after the school committee meeting, again, I was a little upset at what I heard, and I felt like there were some questions, direct questions that were not asked. One of these questions, direct questions I wanted answered, was, if an agreement put in place in 1991 listing an alternative method, does that handcuff and limit a regional school committee to only present the method defined in that agreement, or could the committee opt to present a budget based on the statutory method to the member towns and district? Through Mr. Small, school committee member, I got a hold of him. I said, what would be the best way to do this? Do you want me to send it to DESI? I personally feel this is a school committee issue. They should be dealing with it. I believe he then sent it to the superintendent, and then we ultimately sent it to Ms. Christine Lynch at DESI. And if you just give me 1 second, because I lost it.
Need a copy?
I have it right here.
Yeah, iPad.
Christine Lynch, Director of Regional Governance at Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. To specifically answer Mr. Lamatina's question, the 1991 agreement does not limit the school committee to only present the method defined in the agreement. The school committee may choose either method. And I think that is the ultimate point of what we're saying. Yes, we know we have an agreement. Yes, we know there is an alternative method in that agreement. But we need to do what's financially, ethically, and morally right for the people of this town and our kids. And I think that at this point, when you look at what we're paying over what the state says our minimum contribution should be, and I think we're almost $3 million. $3.7 million. $3.7 million over what the state says our minimum contribution should be. And that's just one factor that we need to do something, or else we will not be able to to maintain services the way they should be. But this isn't a way to pick Hanson's pockets. This is a method that we should have known about. That DESI says we should have been able, every year, that if we were going to adopt an alternative assessment, we should have known that. Now, I'm not saying anyone was wrong. I don't know why that is. But what I do know is we have to fix it. And I ultimately think the best way we can move forward and establish a solid ground on this would be to have this board support only a statutory-based assessment.
If I may interject.
Yep.
The money, the 3.7 million that we're talking about is not excess funding to the school. I want to make that clear, that there is a provision in Chapter 71 that says, when you change your method, you can't reduce what you are funding. We can't turn around and say, look, we're paying too much, now we want to pay less. We're obligated to continue the funding because that's the cost of educating our children. It's just that the distribution of aid should recognize the need of each community. And that's an equitable term. It puts us on fair ground. We're not looking to, what did he say last week, pickpocket Hanson? We want to do what the statute provides for.
Right, and if I may have not been clear in that statement, with this, we're not looking to reduce money by any stretch out of the budget. We will continue to do the best we can. I think over previous years, we've shown we are making strides in that. But what we're also saying is that money that is allocated through state aid, our Chapter 70 money, for specific disparities in economics in our town should be, we get more money because of, I guess, economic conditions.
Right,
You know, and it goes into everything. It goes into value of property.
There's
It
about
goes
20
into-
different steps.
Yeah, it goes into the
Median family income is a big
median
part.
family
Right.
income. All of that is factored into what qualifies for aid. And it's just equity.
And the people that need this aid, the kids that need this aid, should get it. And that's what we're talking, so we're not talking about, and this isn't throughout a change to the entire budget. We are talking about a change to the how the foundation budget is established. Other apportionment costs will still remain, at least in my mind, it would still remain a per pupil split. But we're just talking about getting our Chapter 8 and not reallocating that to the town of Hanson, which is what we are doing now.
Right.
And it should remain with the kids that need it the most.
And one thing we have to remember is, as elected members of the Board of Selectmen, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens and taxpayers of this community to do what's in their best interest. And this is in their best interest.
Right, just to make things all clear on the other end, because a lot of questions was asked about South Shore Tech, and South Shore Tech does do the statutory method. We've been doing it. I talked to Superintendent Tom Hickey, and he said since 1995. We've been doing it. And it's to the point where I've always said that Whitman has a lot of students there, but basically Whitman's end up paying $11,070 per student, and that's the lowest, and the highest is at Cohasset, which you understand is different, and they're paying $18,677 a student, a lot more than we are because of the makeup of the statutory method and how the town value is. And I think that's important because the state is looking at that and saying every child is due a proper education, and because a city or town is less fortunate as far as businesses or whatever, we should give them more help, and we should, right, and we're not getting credit for that.
The state has come up with a statutory method that they
Right.
deem is a fair way to do it. And like I said, it self-corrects. I think you may have run some numbers where at one point, we may not have been benefiting in years past, and that there's been fluctuate, if you run this through a certain time frame, it fluctuates, and that's based on those conditions. So you're not stuck to a 31-year-old agreement predating education reform. And the argument that I've seen on social media is there's some people out there that think the crux of this whole thing is a regional agreement. It's clearly not about a regional agreement. You could write anything you want in that agreement as an alternative method, but the statutory method is always available.
And right, and it's there, the main purpose is to help towns less fortunate, so all children get the same education.
Right.
The same quality and standard education, whether you're a rich town or a poorer town. It's that simple, and I think it's the right way to go. Anybody else on the board wish to?
I would just add that I've been looking into other regions, trying to find something comparable, and Bridgewater-Raynham was the most easily like Whitman-Hanson that I could find. Bridgewater makes up about 65% of the students there, but Raynham, it has a higher property value, higher median incomes. It mirrored our situation pretty well, and about 10 years ago, they ran into this situation. Raynham threatened to withdraw from the region, saw the costs, backed down, and then they moved to the statutory method. So every region has had to go through this
Right.
since the memo in 2007, if not before.
What I would add is I did, in my conversation today with Ms. Lynch, I did ask her some questions about other towns. She was pretty clear, we're a little late to the game dealing with this. And I did ask her, I said, she was very clear, you may have a fight ahead of you because it's a one-on-one battle. You know, in this, unfortunately, you have an economic, somebody who's going to benefit, somebody who's not going to benefit for the first year. I asked her if there were other solutions like Bridgewater, anything like that, that she could provide information, how those waters were kind of navigated. Please send those to our superintendent. So maybe he has, you know, some ammunition that he can help guide us through this with. But I think the path for the town of Whitman is very clear.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have anything? Mr. Kane?
Sean Kane, 31 Forest Street. I'd say I agree with you. I think the statutory method ultimately is the way to go. I feel like the research behind it is pretty clear. I think the equitable nature of the law makes sense. I think the numbers, when you look at them, median household income in Hanson is much higher than Whitman. For all those reasons, I think it makes sense. The one reservation I have is just the time frame for which we should get there. I think expecting that Hanson could make that jump in 1 year could be a really difficult expectation for them financially. If it's anything like, you know, this current fiscal year, to absorb $1 million in their budget would be really difficult for them. You know, so I'm not saying that ultimately shouldn't be the case, but I think participating or holding off on this vote and participating in a board that's meant to sit down and kind of hash some of this stuff out could be a good step forward, just to stay on good terms with Hanson and hopefully work through this. So.
I understand what you're saying, but I look at last year's budget. I look at what our department heads did on 2 occasions in cutting their budget in order to meet the needs of the schools, and then have to go back and re-cut their budget because we were looking at a 5%, and I think Hanson said that they could afford an 8%. We needed to match Hanson, so they even had to cut more out of their budget. So I think our department heads took the bull by the horns, and they did what they had to do to give the schools what they needed and cut their own budgets. A lot of money. That being said, I think it may be Hampton's time to do the same thing. Whitman believes in education. I mean, it's obvious, we've always supported the schools. And for all our departments, cutting thousands of dollars in order to give it to the schools, when really, we didn't need to. In my opinion, if we were on the statutory method, but we didn't know at the time.
Sean, I just want to add, that was the direction that I was leaning to, but I've been looking back at the numbers. In 2015, the swing, if you want to call it that, was about 300,000. In 2017, it was 500,000. Last year, it was $1 million. Because of the demographic trends of both towns, Hanson's student population is declining faster than Whitman's, and their median home value and income is increasing faster than ours. This situation's getting worse.
Likely get worse,
So the
yeah.
longer we extend that deadline, the
Sure.
more difficult it's going to become.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't disagree with you. I've been following Whitman's budget pretty closely, obviously, but the problem is I think there's people from Hanson that haven't been. So they know that we went through a struggle last year, but I don't know that they know the details of the struggle that we went to. So even just participating in just going there, participating in the negotiation or the committee would help them better understand our financial struggles, so that even if ultimately we don't choose to go with the compromise or something like that, I think it would just help, open up the dialogue, make sure that they know, the struggle that we're under, so they better understand the decision that we make. If you make the decision tonight without that, I feel like it might just cause, them to take a bit more aggressive
Is that the ultimate decision
action.
of the school committee?
Right.
To choose what method they choose to present to the towns, statutory or what's alternative?
It is, I mean, and that's one thing that I don't want anyone to confuse, that this is the only method. The statutory method is for either town, and this is the way, a very layman's way to describe it. It's almost like being in the fourth quarter of a football game and being able to run out the clock. Now, if it benefits you, you can do that. Now, if Hanson was on the other side of this, they can do the same thing.
Right.
And the reason why that is because this is the most equitable method. It ultimately works for everyone. The problem is, it is we have let this go, falling into the game so late, this number has grown. I don't know who we can blame for that. I don't think that's this board's task to do that. I think this board's task is to set a vision going forward. But ultimately, we need to. And the statutory method is the most equitable way, in my opinion. But that being said, the school committee could opt to use an alternative method to send back to the towns to vote.
Right.
So they do have a legal way if they want to pursue that.
Fred, Mr. Small.
Fred Small School Committee. Just going back a couple of steps first. The state determines the foundation budget based upon what we have for students, what grade they're in, and determines the cost to educate them. Then they look at our demographics, and they look at our ability to pay. Then they backfill that with Chapter 78 to at least equal, then I believe our number is 39,700,000 and some odd thousand. So they backfill it. Now, they say that Hanson's ability, according to the demographics, according to their numbers, is greater. The monies that have been allocated on the Chapter 70 funds are greater for Whitman percentage-wise. And those monies are being thrown into the bundle and then getting taken out at the end when we apportion the costs. That's the alternative method that we're using. The statutory method recognizes what the ability to pay is and takes the monies out beforehand for the state funding, or the Chapter 70 additional funding. So that's how we get to the discrepancy is just over $1 million this year. My fear is you need to give direction to the town. Let Hanson know as sooner rather than later. Right now, Sean, if they have an opportunity to feel that the statutory method could be coming, come budget time, they can perhaps do an override. They can start making steps in preparation instead of it being, you get to April, May, and hello, surprise. Then you take the next step and you look at, where people want to be, what can they afford. They seem to have the ability. Do they have the willingness? And then we go from there. But at no time does it change the amount of funding that the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District receives. Our budget is still the same.
Right.
And, the one thing I'll disagree, we didn't get what we needed last year. We got what the town could afford.
Right.
Because we needed substantially more. But that being said, to know what direction we're going with and to have direction from this board, at least in my mind, would be appreciated. So, thank you.
Any further discussion on it?
I would just add one more thing, is this town has made a commitment to start moving things, not in a more positive way, but to really start to get things under control. I would hate to see one thing completely throw us off track with this. And this is an issue that I don't think is going to get solved overnight, but I think a clear direction from this board enables us to keep moving forward.
Mr. George.
Chris George, 4 Shelley Lane. I agree with everything said. I certainly, Sean, understand your sentiment, but this is something I've kind of been involved with for a couple of years now. It came to light really back in 2016, thanks to a Hanson resident who wanted to be the smartest person in the room and happened to send me a memo that outlined some of this. And after digging and working with folks like Randy and Don Byers and Fred and others, it came to light that really there was an issue out there. And unfortunately, I think, this could be a tough pill to swallow short term. Certainly, it's going to affect Hanson, and it may affect their ability to meet increases right away. But long-term for this town and long-term for the school district, there is no way we could continue to meet the increases that we were seeing while Whitman was paying 60%, and the state was basically saying to Hanson, you can pay more. They were getting away with only paying 40% of what the state was saying they could pay. If you look at the numbers since 2015, Hanson's assessments have gone up something like 24%, while ours have gone up 41%. If you look at those numbers using the statutory method, Hanson's would have gone up 40%, ours would have gone up 36%. So a very, very equitable way of breaking these things up. So, I think that's really the clear thing here. This is the most equitable way to break up the budget, no matter how you cut the numbers. I'm sure Fred's looked at a bunch of them. I've looked at them a number of different ways. School committee member Byers has run numbers a whole bunch of different ways and have really kind of helped show those. So I think the message from the Board of Selectmen to the Finance Committee, to the school committee members, in supporting only a statutory method really gives them some clear direction. I know that there are certain members of the school committee here tonight. I know that there are others who are watching who are in support of this. I know there are some, I don't know where they stand. I can tell you as a citizen, if you're a school committee member and you're thinking about not voting for the statutory method, you better think long and hard, because it's not a threat, it's a promise. I'm coming for you with a whole bunch of other residents, right? We've given away $3.9 million since 2015. It's only going to continue to get worse if we don't fix it now. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I would just like to add one more thing that really concerns me about potentially a phase-in process. If the school committee were to come up with an alternate method that gives a runway of a couple of years to get to the statutory method, every year that alternate method is out there, Whitman's town meeting could vote it down, force a super town meeting with the statutory method. So I think that giving Hanson time between now and May to plan for the statutory method is a lot easier than giving them the time between their town meeting and a super town meeting. This gives them at least a little time to prepare.
Well, it's funny you should say that, but again, I look at what our town did, and within a month, cutting their town budgets, their department budgets, to meet the cost of education, our portion of it. And I think that if Whitman's department heads can do that, I see no reason why Hanson couldn't follow the same procedure. Because it seemed that they had no problem going to the, 8.5%, 8%, was it?
I think it was
8.5.
8.5%, they had no issue with that as far as I knew, but we did. So, it is what it is. I mean, what's fair is fair. The state has a procedure, and it's there for the education of the children, fair and easy.
I mean, and just like Brian said, I don't know how Hanson's going to do it. That's a Hanson problem.
Right.
We have a responsibility to the taxpayers in this community, the residents of this community, and the kids of this community.
And the thing you got to remember too is, we're being proactive here. We've already, with your committee, jumped right in. We're working on the next year, trying to figure out how we're going to do this. With this, we have a clear vision as to how we can approach the next year and beyond.
Right.
And that's what the goal has been all along. So for us not to do this, I think is, it's suicide for us to not act on this.
It's not in the best interest of both the children.
And if
schools all the
the
time.
roles were reversed, would Hanson give us the same consideration? I don't think so, because that's their fiduciary responsibility to their taxpayers and citizens to do the same thing. So I just don't see it.
For me, if you weren't, you end up with a statutory method at a super town meeting. You end up with a statutory method when the Commissioner of Education
Right.
takes fiscal control of your budget. You end up here. And that to me speaks volumes.
And based on how town meeting has been the last few years, I can probably guarantee that with them knowing all this information, I know what they would do.
I've had people come to me and say, why can't we get all that money back? I said, well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, you can't.
Legally, we can't.
The town agreed.
Right.
Accepted
We
the
agreed, we
assessment
accepted
every
that,
year.
right?
Yeah.
Go
So,
forward.
I mean, but going forward,
What I want to say, and I would hate anyone that, I will tell you that the current administration, has been fantastic with trying to solve this problem.
Right.
That George and Jeff have been fantastic. And I am sure there are a lot of members of the school committee that were not on when this issue really took head.
right,
To try and cast blame,
No.
you were casting blame way
you
back.
need to go forward.
And I think there are some members from Whitman that are really, working on this. And the current superintendent and assistant superintendent are in a tough spot, but I think they've handled it very well.
Yeah.
Any other, Sean,
Just
last word?
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be the last word, but just
Well,
for me,
just about,
I can tell, it's kind of obvious, I guess, where the committee's going to go, but the budget committee that you put together, I think, is doing the right thing. They're looking at all things, and they want to set a solid foundation for us moving forward. For that, it seems like the statutory method makes sense. I agree. But I think this decision tonight, I think you need to consider how it's going to be received by Hanson. And I think it's going to be received as an aggressive act, And I'm not saying you're not right in your arguments. I'm saying because we're part of the region, we should consider that as part of what we do. And I'm not saying, again, I don't want to prolong this for months, and I think it's beneficial to be proactive for budgetary reasons. But even just holding off tonight so that you could just play a role in that committee and then make a strong stance in the committee, with other people there. I think even that would be better received than simply doing it tonight and not going to the table.
we can vote our opinion,
Well,
and
the
it's up to
committee,
the school committee.
the committee Sean's talking about is, the chair wanted to put together a regional agreement committee. This is not a regional agreement issue.
Right.
Regardless of this is in a agreement or not.
Right.
This method is open to any town. And you would almost, to not follow this, to put another method in that this board and maybe the board from Hanson agreed on for years, great, until you get the turnover. And now somebody says, we have the statutory method.
Right.
The other
If
point,
you don't follow it, you are opening yourselves up for every year, either town being able to push this to a super town meeting year after year. And that's another major issue with this.
Right.
If you don't follow this, the town has a bad year,
Right.
we're
Right.
going to a super town meeting.
Right. Frank?
the other point I wanted to make is that there are two options available right now. There's the agreement method and the statutory method. If we come up with anything in between that, we don't have a provision to act on that, so we would have to create another agreement. Because any action other than statutory or the
Alternative.
current
Yeah.
alternative method would violate our existing agreement. So it just adds more time and more process to it. I don't disagree that we should be having dialogue with the region and with Hanson if they want to have a group of people sit down and talk with us. But I think that this board needs to make an indication to people that what its preference is and how we expect to see things moving forward. And I don't think it does any service to anyone to delay this process unnecessarily. If you're talking about setting up a regional agreement committee, that's not going to be an overnight thing. And it has to be done anyway.
How long did the last regional agreement committee take?
About a
to-
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, in my opinion, I mean, both Fred and I were on it, the last one. I think there's only two issues that need to be dealt with. It's probably the method of funding and a possible deregionalization clause.
Right,
And I think that's what's left out.
And that's not what we're talking about.
I know, it. That's not what we're talking, but I'm just saying.
Just to be clear with that.
Yeah,
And I know there's been some conversation, why didn't we sign it? Well, if I was Hanson, I would, even though this agreement does have a little bit more of the statutory language in it, it is still extremely ambiguous.
right.
And I think the superintendent himself said that at a school committee meeting. I think if we would have signed that agreement, and Hanson would have signed that agreement, we would have gotten to May, knowing what we know now, that we could, that's
Right.
in there and maybe spelled out a little differently, you would have had, this issue would have blown up at a
Right.
time when we don't have time to work through it, or to give people a path. And we can do that now.
And I got the sense of, at the school committee meeting, that at the special town meeting in Hanson, they're clearly going to rescind their vote on
Right.
that regional agreement anyway.
Right.
And even the attorney said that it probably, it's not in force anyway, so it's really just moot.
For me, this isn't an agreement issue.
Right.
That
Right.
you have this method.
Right.
It's a process issue.
Right, Mr. Small.
And that's exactly, two totally separate things.
Right.
A new agreement committee will be someone to work on a new agreement.
Right.
But the statutory method is well within everybody's rights right now
Yep.
to be used. And, yeah, you probably could never get a committee to hash things out, agree on things, and vote things in,
Right.
beforehand. So they're completely two separate issues as far as that goes.
So, huh?
I'll make the motion.
You want to make the motion?
Yeah, unless you want to do it, I'll make the motion that, I think that this board should vote to call for Whitman Hanson Regional School District Committee to use a statutory method of assessment going forward, and further advise the committee that The board's recommendation at town meeting is to support an assessment based on statutory assessment method.
Do I hear a second to that?
Second.
Any
So-
further
so-
discussion?
So moved.
Huh?
So moved.
Yep, second.
Okay. Any discussion,
And,
Mike? Any further
I think
discussion?
we've really
I think
discussed,
we've-
and the
yeah.
only thing that I can say is, this is just a sense of our board on what we'd like them to do.
Right.
Anything beyond, discussions of phasing it in, this and that, this has nothing to do with that.
Right.
That's for afterwards. But this is
And I
just
think
a
a
sense of.
lot of that is the school committee.
Right.
Right.
They're elected officials,
Right.
so, for the board. Okay.
Yep.
Enough said. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go. Announce October 8th meeting and to schedule an additional meeting. What are we looking at? How about 22nd, Frank?
Your ride's here.
That would give people enough time to digest what we get at the October 8th meeting.
Right.
You say
Give us 2 more weeks.
You say 22?
What do you think?
October 22nd? I think that works.
Second, yep.
22nd? Sounds good.
And I would ask that we table the last item
Yep.
on the agenda.
So motion to table old business
So moved.
on Chief Brando's recommendation to accept proposed Chief's Assessment Center.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
We no need to go into executive session, so motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're done.